Now that we've transferred boxed wine into glass, let's find out how it's fared in its life from being harvested in 2008 in the south of France, poured into a bag, put into a cardboard square, and shipped across the Atlantic to New York. Now, having been opened in 2012, 3 years on from when these first grapes were picked. So first of all, you want to check color and clarity. Looking at the wine, you can see it's clear, which is a good sign that most of the sediment has been gotten rid of. I know it's unfiltered because the box tells me so. So therefore, they've probably done a good job of giving the wine time to settle and then siphoned it off using the racking method. The color itself is moderately intense. It's not very, intense or bright in any way, shape, or form, just kind of moderately intense. And in terms of the color profile itself, it's got a kind of a garnet quality to it, especially along the edge here. You can definitely see that kind of, it's not as purpley or ruby colored as it used to be. It's definitely shifted towards the slightly later phase, which makes sense. This is a 2008 wine, and it's had 3 years since it was harvested. So it's 2012 now, and therefore, starting to show a bit of its age in terms of the color. But, all in all, looks good so far. Let's try it. Let's take a whiff. So, first and foremost, CuveeDePena has definitely used a fair amount of sulfur to keep the wine stable and fresh as it's made its way to the US. This is no different than the wine I've tried in the bottle as well from them. If you smell the smell of freshly struck matches on your wine, especially right after you've opened it, don't worry. What you need to do is allow it a little time and a little aeration to waft off. The sulfur will go away. It's meant to preserve the wine and keep its shelf stable so that it isn't disgusting and vinegar by the time it gets to your table. So just give it a few wafts around, give it some time, don't worry, basically. Alright, so it's starting to go. What I'm noticing is moderately intense, not very intense, notes of kind of dried fruits, fruits of some sort, dark fruits. Has a very kind of raisiny note to it. Apple skin, red apple skin. There's certainly some sort of citrus thing going on here too, maybe grapefruit of some sort. And beyond the sulfur, there's certainly some minerality. It's a kind of salty spice. There's very clearly a leather note as well. But, for the most part, this is fairly typical of relatively cheap southern French provincial vin de pays, or country wine, made from Grenache, Syrah, Carignan, and Mourvedre, the typical suspects. Let's taste it. Salut! Thanks for letting me spit. This way I can operate heavy machinery afterwards. It's dry. There's not much, or if any, residual sugar to this. The acidity's present, certainly. I'd say it has moderate acidity, that kind of mouth-watering sensation that one gets. But it's not high in acidity or low in acidity, it's just right there. Enough to keep your palate going while you're having food. The tannins are present as well, but nothing too much in terms of that drying sensation one gets on the sides of the palate. I'd say it has medium to light tannins. The weight isn't huge. It's more medium in body, almost medium light in body. I wouldn't say it's necessarily light. There's certainly some body to it. It's just, the mid-palate just doesn't show off a lot of weight. The fruit isn't very present or heavy or intense in any way, shape, or form. The alcohol is there. You definitely get a bit of heat at the back of the throat, a kind of burning sensation when you breathe out. And that's a sign of probably around 14% alcohol, but you can always check the box, which probably says about the same. It's definitely short in terms of length. It doesn't hang around in terms of flavors. It just kind of comes and goes in one fell swoop, which is fine. You don't expect much more length from a vin de pays or vin de table, a country wine. But let's check out what the flavor profiles are, in addition to all these diagnostics. Not intense in terms of flavors. I'd say it has moderate intensity. Definitely get the same notes that we got on the nose, certain dried fruit characteristics such as raisin, dried cherries maybe. Has a kind of mealy, appley quality to it, red apple quality, mealy kind of apple skin. There's a slight like wax somewhere in there maybe as well, just that kind of sensation almost, more than anything else. It's, you know, it's not going to change the world. This is just a nice drink. It's your everyday red. You'd find this at a restaurant on the table in a carafe as the house pour. You know, it's not impressive. It's not meant to stop conversation. It's just meant to be there and accompany the food like a nice, quiet, you know, friend or associate that's there. It's very friendly, has good spice, good kind of minerality as well, kind of these little notes of leather and maybe allspice and these sort of things, you know, kind of herbs as well, but it's not hugely complex. And I wouldn't expect as much. I mean, you're spending about $10 a bottle for this. This is a large production. They have 1,000 acres of which they grow their vines on. They have 150,000 cases made each year of their wine. And so therefore, I'm not expecting a heck of a lot out of that. And it doesn't disappoint. You know, for $30 to get 4 bottles of wine is pretty darn impressive. And this isn't a bad drink. I mean, I would serve this at parties. Just make sure to open it a little earlier beforehand because that sulfur will come through. I'm excited to see what the 2009 will be like, because this is '08, and '08 notoriously wasn't a very good year in France, especially in the south. And so it'd be nice to see what happens in time. You know, they might be able to have a bit more ripeness and fullness in terms of body, which you'd expect from a riper year made of Grenache and Syrah and Carignan and all these grape types that are typically grown down there. And what I want to see as well, and we'll revisit this wine in a while, is how the box holds up. Because the bag inside of that is a great idea, because what it does is no oxygen can get back into it in theory. So as I keep pouring wine from that spout, no air is getting back in, unlike the bottle, which once you pour out a bit of wine, there's air in there. What happens is it starts developing vinegar, basically. It starts turning the wine. And so maybe the bag in the box might be a way around that, and I think it's a very clever idea, but I want to see if it's actually effective, because I don't know for sure whether or not when I push that button, if air bubbles aren't escaping back into the wine. So we'll revisit this wine in a while, but thank you very much for watching, and try it. Try a boxed wine. Do your part for the environment, do your part for your pocketbook, and for your enjoyment, because you can always try something new. Thank you.